Now we're going to go back into level 1 and start to set up our game management and data persistence system. To do that, we're going to create a new script, and this script is going to be our game manager. And the game manager is going to be responsible for a few things, but the key thing it's going to do is bind our player's data to the player, and then we can bind other things up later. Let's start by going to the scripts folder, and we're going to create a new script, a new C# script called Game Manager with a capital G and a capital M, and we'll even get that special little logo or icon on it. Let's see. We should get the little gear icon that appears because Game Manager class name is associated with a little gear. It's just kind of a built-in thing, and you can actually go into these icons. So if I select a class, you can actually go in and select the icon, go search for an icon, pick whatever you want, or change the specific one there. Game Manager just happens to have a gear assigned to it by default by the name. That's because most games are going to have a game manager, and they just, I think, thought, hey, why not give that one a cool icon? All right, let's go to the player input manager component now, or game object. So in level 1, we've got a player input manager that has our player input manager component on it. And we only need one of these in our game, and we only need one game manager in our game, well, two things. So what I like to do here is combine these into a single object. So I'm going to take my game manager script, drag it onto the player input manager, and then apply the override. So go to overrides and hit apply all so that it gets applied to the prefab. Then I'm going to rename this to player input manager and game manager, and then hit, let's see, no, there's nothing to apply now. I just wanted to update that, but I do want to copy the name here and then go select the prefab and rename the prefab as well, just so that its name matches. And to do that, I just select it, hit F2, and then paste in the new name. So now it's got a new name here. I should see in Plastic SCM that it's got it as moved, which just means that I renamed the file. So if you rename a file in source control, you're generally going to see that as a move. Some source control systems will show it as a rename. A lot of the time though, you'll just see it as a move. So we've got a moved item here. We've got our new changed item, which is kind of changed and moved. And we have our game manager.cs script. Let's go modify that script now. So I'm going to go to my player input in game manager and open up the game manager script. The game manager script's got a start and an update, and I'm going to delete both of those out of here. The first thing that I want to do with my game manager is just make it be a singleton. I want it to be an object that's going to be only one instance. So there's only ever going to be one game manager around. And I want to make sure that if there is a game manager in a scene and I load into another scene, I don't end up with two game managers. So let's write the code to do that now. We're going to add an awake method. And the first thing that we're going to do is set our instance to this object. So we'll say instance equals this. Now we'll generate that property. So we'll hit Alt-Enter with instance selected and create generate property, or click generate property. We should get a public game manager instance with a public getter and a private setter. What this is going to do is allow us to keep track of whether or not our game manager has already been spawned. We'll do that by checking to see if the instance is already set. But to do that, we're also going to need to add in the static keyword here before game manager. And that's so that every game manager that spawns, if we have a game manager in level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and so on, all of them will always share this same instance. So if a game object, the game manager gets destroyed and a new game manager comes up, well, this instance would be here. It'd be kind of a problem, not exactly what we want. But if we spawn multiple game managers, like we go from level 1 and it has a game manager to level 2 and it has a game manager, then we're going to know that this has already been set by level 1's game manager. So we can add a line here before the instance equals this and say if instance is not equal to null, so if it has been set, then what we want to do instead is just destroy this new game manager. So we'll say destroy game object and then return. So now we've got an object that should only allow us to have one of, and it will, well, right now it won't persist across levels. So we need to add in one more line of code down here on line 17 and say don't destroy on load. There we go, I spelled it right, and we'll pass in our game object. Let's save, go set this up in Unity and see what it does and how it feels before we dive into how we're going to bind the player data up to it. So we've got our game manager here. It's assigned, and if I save my scene and just press play, I should see that it moves now down into the don't destroy on load section. And that's because we've added that don't destroy on load. So I've got it right here, right next to my debug updater. So I've got my player input manager and my game manager here. And if I go over to the flag, or here, let's go grab some coins first. Go grab the flag. You'll see that I still have my game manager and my player input manager. My inspector did not clear out. That's because this object is the same exact object and it's still selected. Go down here, I can see that I don't have a game manager and player manager because they got destroyed. And if I go into level 1, that's the ones that were placed in level 2. If I go back to level 1, the ones that were placed there got destroyed, and the one that I already had from before is still around. So now I've got an object that persists across multiple levels, and I need to use that object in my Singleton, my game manager here, to keep track of this data and start to bind it up to players so that we can have our player continue their game across multiple levels. So first though, let's go into Plastic and commit our change because we've added a Singleton game manager. And we need to have that in here before we start hooking up player data to it. So we'll go in and save our scene, make sure everything is saved and updated, and then check in our changes.